This week we discuss news from Intel, SkyKick, SolarWinds MSP, and Datto with guest host Lawrence Cruciana, founder and president of Corporate Information Technologies, plus a special guest interview with Tim Brown, vice president of security at SolarWinds. It's ChannelPro Weekly, number 164, Rabid Raccoons. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, episode 164. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and host of this program for folks like you. And who are you? Well, pull out your wallet and driver's license, and it has your name and address on it right there to tell you who you are. But if you look elsewhere in your wallet, there might be a little card that says, I am a MSP, a VAR, an integrator, an IT consultant, a MSSP, well, there's a whole million acronyms and titles for people like you. But if you work in the technology industry and you work with other businesses, you are likely in the right place. Welcome. Joining me each and every week is our awesome co-host, the man who makes black on black look like it's coming back into style. Although I don't know, black on black never really goes out of style, though, does it, Rich? Executive editor, Rich Freeman.
See, that's the whole idea of sticking with black on black, is I don't have to worry about it. It's pretty timeless.
And it matches your glasses too. So you like got this whole like matching ensemble going on there.
Yeah.
And we got the black glasses, we got the black shirt. So for those who are watching, they can see that. But we can't see what's going on below. Is it black downstairs, or is it like a black belt?
See if I can do this. There.
Oh, we're rocking the blue jeans, black on blue. Rich is a big walking bruise, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. But you could go with the black pants with the black belt, although that might confuse people and they think you're like some kind of jiu-jitsu master if you're wearing a black belt around on the streets.
Which would end poorly for me, right? Let's see what this guy's got. Answer.
I don't know, might keep people away, right? They're like, "Whoa, that guy's the karate master over there." You never know. Well, over here, cackling on the side window here is our guest host. We're very, very excited to have him on. He is the founder and president of Corporate Information Technologies. He leads CIT's cybersecurity business practice, focusing on businesses that handle high value and regulated information. He's a sought-after presenter on information risk and information security topics at numerous conferences across a wide variety of industries. Please welcome Lawrence Cruciana.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Great to have you on. Hopefully I pronounced your last name correctly.
You did great. Better than most.
It's that's a shocker, because Rich will attest that I'm like, if a 1% chance I'll get it wrong, I will get it wrong. So that's great. Awesome to have you here. I know we recorded an interview a little while ago with Tim Brown, so I've gotten to learn a little bit about you. I am so excited for this show. I bet you're going to have lots to weigh in on. You're brilliant when it comes to security. So this is going to be great stuff. So but I know a little about you now. Why don't you go ahead and tell others out there who may not be familiar with you or with CIT about you and CIT?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I have been in this business now for a little over 20 years. Started on very much the hardware integration side, moved into ISV, moved into MSP, and now into MSSP. I think I got almost all of the acronyms that you started the show with. But really, I've done kind of the kind of whole arc of what this business has matured into, and today I am fortunate to work with an incredible team. We are a managed services and managed security provider here in beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina. We have people across the country, but everything is headquartered here. And we work principally with the small, mid-market, and SLTT, so state, local, tribal, and territorial government space, in helping them secure themselves, not just keeping the bad guys out, but keeping the blinking lights blinking, and really took a holistic and integrated approach to what MSP means today, because I'm not sure if that means the same thing as it did just even 6 months ago, but keep the bad guys out and keep the blinking lights blinking, and we do that. We have a 24/7 security operations center, and like I said, we have fantastic folks on the operational side as well as the security side, and we try to keep the bad guys at bay while allowing our clients really to focus on what they do best, and that's run their businesses.
And now I think you're onto something here too, because you said a lot of acronyms you got there. Do you bill by the acronym?
I don't bill by the acronym, but that'd be a really good idea. That's, I'm gonna have to write that down just a second.
The more acronyms you have, the more you charge. I think that.
Now, I will say, admittedly, a couple of years back at our company Christmas party. So we have a very geeky culture here. At our company Christmas party, we decided that we were going to have an acronym bee, everyone from our sales guys to our admin, all of our technical folks, everyone got to participate, and it was impressive that we filled a solid 30 minutes with acronyms, and it was pretty amazing how many we all had crammed into our head.
It's shocking the number of acronyms that are in the technology industry, and they're always, and there's always another one. I caught one the other day that I'd never seen before, and I'm like, what the heck is that? So yeah, great stuff. So tell us a little bit about you, so more on the personal side. What kind of things do you like to do when you're not securing customers and billing by the acronym?
Absolutely. Well, it's first, I love what I do. I'm very passionate about this. So I spend a lot of time actually on the research side of things on my personal time, what personal time there is, right? It's all the days kind of blend together now. So I do spend a lot of time on adversarial research and frankly, trying to make the MSP space a little bit more secure. And do a lot of work with the NCCOE, with NIST, and the Center for Internet Security. So that's the professionally personal stuff. But on my free time, former competitive inline skater, sadly a former scuba instructor. I am the proud father of two wonderful children, both of which are probably the best pen testers that I've ever seen. They're amazing, and one of them is a social engineer in the making. And I've been married to my wife. Goodness, it took me 10 years to convince her to marry me, and we just celebrated our 12th anniversary. So we've been together for a while. So but this is what I eat, sleep, and breathe. It's such an exciting time to be in this industry, and such an exciting time to be alive.
Wow, 10 years. That's definitely playing the long play there.
It took a long time. I mean, granted, I think she was trying to map out like what the risk model was, and at the end, I said, like there are no surprises at this point in time, right? You know what it is, and yeah. So we've been together ever since.
Good for you. I figured you were just gonna woo her with all the acronyms that like, because that would get my wife, I think.
Somehow or another. So she was a molecular and cellular biology major. She was in the 5-degree program, and she knows as many acronyms in that space as I do in this space, and it is terrifying when we get together because you're not actually sure if we're speaking a different language or not. It's just amazing.
So tell me about professional inline skating. That was kind of like out of left field. That kind of caught me off guard. What does that entail? Is that like speed skating? Is that
going? So where I excel was going long distances fast. So where I really tended to shine was the north of 20-mile. Long distance races. So it was a lot of fun. Of course, that was in my younger days, way before I got the geek physique. But it was definitely a lot of fun. And did that competitively, and still skate today.
Hey, speaking of acronyms, Lawrence, because you mentioned you guys are now an MSSP. And this is something that we've been kind of talking about at ChannelPro at our events and the magazine and so on. I mean, because I run into people with different definitions of what MSSP is and what managed security is. So, I mean, from your perspective, somebody who's in that field, what defines being an MSSP?
That is an exceptional question. So we view security as a co-managed sport, right? It is a team sport here. As an MSSP, where we kind of what we define that is that we're responsible for transference and management of some of the risk of the information that our clients have. And we define what that scope is around what the information is, and that is what allows us to manage that. I know there are others that are managing tools, there are others that are managing outcomes, there are some that are managing firewalls, and that is their MSSP business. For us, where we chose to kind of build the box and define that, it was really around information risk and managing the risk to that information, and really focusing on the outcomes as opposed to all the minutia that's kind of in between, because the minutia, of course, as we all know in this business, changes.
So you don't, because I mean, there are a lot, I think still, there are a lot of MSPs who figure if I'm doing security, I'm a managed security service provider too. I mean, it's more, there's more going on than that. But it can be about your expertise and so you don't necessarily have to, for example, operate a SOC to be an MSSP.
No, I mean, in our view, I mean, we do operate a SOC, but that is an artifact of the risk management that we must do. Our MSSP practice really is focused more, and honestly, there are more cycles spent in the C-suite of our clients than in the IT and technology systems. And that is around defining what information exists in the business, what do they have, what's important, what are the key applications that really matter to the business, and then using the skills of applied risk management and just how information flows inside of an organization, wherever that is, and quantifying the risk to the information. And then with that is then how we can make prescriptive requirements of the technology and both protective and detective controls to get that data, so that our technology teams are able then to implement, and then from a monitoring and management perspective, that gives us all an even playing field to play on, and that's what we manage. But you're right. There's so many definitions of MSSP and MSP today. I've really kind of lost track of that.
So you're the perfect guy to ask this of. Like every week, pretty much every day, actually, some vendor or another sends me a security report, about what's been happening in the last 6 months, and they almost always include a 3-digit or a 4-digit number about something that is, it's up that much year over year in the first half of the year, and so on. So I mean, what have you seen? What have you kind of experienced in the security world since the onset of COVID-19?
Oh, it's unbelievable what's happened in our client base. We work principally with organizations that have that value information or are information centric. So as you'd expect, lots of regulated entities, government entities, those in pharma, fintech, finance, financial services, and the just totally different world that we're living in now. I wouldn't have believed it would be possible to transform that much in a year if we just went back a year. What we're really seeing, we see consistently thousands of percent. I get these reports, probably the same ones that you do, and even internally, what we see in our SOC, we went from seeing very cleanly and clearly attributable traffic that was bad. Right? It was obvious that it was bad, and we saw this radical shift to U.S. domestic. So the bad guys operating inside of the same clouds that our clients are, all of the big names. We have seen a massive increase in phishing and vishing, smishing as well, as people have moved to work from home. Bad guys using the fact that they know that there's a high likelihood that there's going to be a work device on the same network as the kid's school device, on the same network that the Xbox or the fill in the blank game controller's on, and everyone's cell phone. And of all of those systems, what's the easiest one to compromise and the one that has the lowest likelihood of having any software to protect them? And that's a cell phone. So we have seen SMS-based attacks, smishing attacks against our clients. Some of them incredibly well targeted. And like I said, I wouldn't have believed that these principally financially motivated attacks targeted against the SMB space would have been such a shift a year ago, but we see it every day. I think the other thing that's significant to mention there is the targets against MSPs. We have some robust network defenses and detective controls, those are challenged and tested every single day, every hour of every day, and it is amazing to me how the chatter that we see from our intelligence gathering activity, that the chatter is, you hear all the normal enterprise applications, but now we're hearing applications that are MSP specific. Right? We're hearing all of the vendors that we all use as the tools the bad guys are investigating and mastering. And frankly, some of the attacks we've seen just in the news, I think there are a lot of MSPs that could probably learn a thing or two about how to use the tools that we're using from the bad guys, because they're mastering these things.
Yeah, so I want to build on Rich's question and ask you specifically how the whole pandemic has kind of impacted your MSP specifically, CIT,
Yeah.
and now that we're 6 months plus into this, are you guys starting to kind of go back to normal? How did it affect you, and how are you reacting to it internally?
That's a great question. So internally, I think we like everyone else, one day just went home, and it was really kind of a stark change. Now, 2 years ago or so, we had kind of begun the internal transformation with the simple premise of information without borders, and that was the statement that we went into it with, and we built our MSP with the security controls that extended beyond the four walls of our clients. We adopted the same thing. I like to say we eat our own dog food. So we were our first patient, if you will. Our first test case was internal, and it actually manifested, interestingly, in one of the business continuity tests that we had done internally. We have a little bit of fun with the way that we do business continuity, and we create hypothetical scenarios, and those scenarios are there's some randomization around what catastrophic things we chain together to result in this, and whatever the event is that we need to test for. And one of the events that actually came up was a viral apocalypse of rabid raccoons, and so that no one could leave their house, and it was instant. No one can leave their house. You can't go back to the office to get your stuff, and if you come into contact with one of these, then you are out of commission, right? You're now man down. And so it was this very hypothetical event that we had constructed a couple of years back, and that event really and kind of how we failed at a lot of it. We thought we had our stuff together until it wasn't we had a plan for the building burning down and the data center and multi-site and geographically diverse and all that stuff, but what about the information that was, that you had, physically there, or your phone, or what was the phone number for that customer that I was working with? I mean, all of this stuff that we just didn't really plan, that caused us to rethink it. And so when this happened, when this all came about, we went back to our Rabid Raccoons, and we said, well, we implemented a lot of changes from that. And internally, it wasn't that big of a deal. externally for our clients, that allowed us to focus on them. And we had been advocating the same type of activity, less around a worldwide viral pandemic that caught us all kind of off guard, but more of what is inside of your business continuity plan, and let's plan for the things that aren't the big catastrophic events. It's easy to plan for the building burning down. It's difficult to plan if half your operations team is ill and cannot do their job. And so the preparation that we had done prior allowed us to really focus on our clients. What we've seen since then, to kind of get back to your question, the attacks were nearly instant, shifting very quickly from business-esque to personal-esque. And really the biggest points of disruption that we found, I think everyone saw, just the capacity of the tool set, whether that be Zoom or Teams, just to absorb this massive inrush of customers. And then as school kicked in, the disruption that then caused to our clients for scheduling, and now we had to modify our service desk because we started getting calls earlier in the morning and much later in the evening. So there was some flexibility that we had to adapt as well.
Very, very cool. Now, in your hypothetical doomsday scenario, if you confronted a rabid raccoon and it bit you, did you become a rabid raccoon, or were you just flat out dead?
You were out. That was our rule. And it's funny. We actually use the same strategy with our clients, where we chain together randomness, and we put it in their hands. And some of the scenarios that you get, you can't make up. I mean, you just could not put together. But really, that randomness makes it for a probably more than valid test. And I'd say in 2020, it makes it for a very valid test, because this year has just been off the rails.
That it has been. And I think now we're all going to walk away from this episode with a irrational fear of raccoons, because it's a scary thing to think about. Well, awesome that you're here. We got the whole show, so I'm super excited that you're going to be on. And we're going to go ahead and switch gears and go to the news, but please feel free to chime in, and we're going to get your opinions and talk about those. For those who are listening at home or on the go, we have links to all of these news stories that we're going to talk about coming up. If you go to the channelpronetwork.com website and find the show page for episode 164, you can follow along, because we're going to kind of give you an idea of them, scratch the surface, but there's usually a lot more detail in all of these. And if you're watching on YouTube, hello. You can open up the description area underneath the video, and we'll have links to all these for you there. So, Rich, on to news. Unified Intel Partner Program is coming when?
Very, very soon, Matt. And at last, you might say. And I say this sympathetically, because this was a giant undertaking. But they've been talking about it at Intel for a long time now, and we are just months away. January, basically, right at the beginning of January, the new Intel Partner Alliance will officially roll out and become the new single partner program at Intel. So basically, what they have done is take, principally there was the Intel Technology provider, the ITP program, and their IoT Solution Alliance, and their Cloud Insider program. Those were sort of the big three there, but there were literally dozens of other partner programs scattered around the company. They each had their own portal. They were each doing their own training and so on. It was very inefficient, obviously, for Intel, but it was a real problem for a lot of their partners increasingly too, because there are a lot of companies out there that just, aren't just one thing anymore. They are appropriate for the Cloud Insider program, but also the IoT program. They also, resell Intel processors. And so they're dealing with different programs with different rules and different portals. And it was really overdue for them to kind of pull all that together to have one program that just feeds everybody what they need. And that is the Intel Partner Alliance. Now, Intel has been talking about this in increasing detail for at least the last year and a half at this point. And it was almost exactly a year ago when they were doing a partner conference that they first sort of sketched out what the Intel Partner Alliance is going to look like. But you know, I was interviewing one of their executives recently, and he said, "Look, let's be realistic. You know, some of our partners were probably paying attention a year ago, but a lot of them are really only just starting to kind of wrap their brains around it now. So a little over 2 months out now, this is actually getting real." And Intel did an online partner conference this week, and they kind of, you know, refreshed everyone's memory about what's coming, basically. And so the gist of it is, it's one program, but they do understand that people go to market in different ways, interact with Intel in different ways. So they have tiers, as most partner programs do. There's the member tier, which is sort of entry level, and then there's gold and titanium. They also have roles, and you can occupy more than one role, but your place in the program, your sort of connection to the program is kind of going to be at the intersection between your role and your tier. You could be a gold integrator, a gold manufacturer, or OEM, for example. And the requirements and the benefits that you're dealing with are going to vary a little bit based on where you come in there. And then they're going to have some things as well, some sort of overlays, if you will, like communities of people who are across roles but share certain technology interests in kind. There are going to be these smaller circles of partners who are either doing really high volume business with Intel or are very strong in a particularly strategic market. So there will still be some kind of cubby holes, and I don't want to call it cubby holes. It is one program, but there are different sort of segments of it, depending on what you do and how you interact with them. But it's all going to be one training and education center. And in fact, that debuted a year ago at this point. Intel Partner University pulls all of their training together in one place. It's over 700 courses right now. The Solutions Marketplace, which also officially opened a year ago, it really isn't 100% up and running the way it's going to be even now. But beginning in January, right now, you pretty much have to be an IoT partner to have a storefront in the marketplace. But beginning in January, more or less any partner who is gold or titanium level and goes through the effort required can go into the Intel Solutions Marketplace, create their own storefront. And then that marketplace is really how Intel is hoping that its various partners will find each other and combine their products and services and go to markets together. And then the other big piece, which was not introduced a year ago, but is available behind the scenes now, is one new unified partner portal for the entire Intel Partner Alliance. And it's apparently going to be drawing on artificial intelligence to understand some things about you and customize your experience of that so that you can find what's actually relevant to you. And that's available now. And in fact, Intel is encouraging partners to go in and start, setting up their profile and all that stuff. So it's been a huge job for Intel. It's taken them understandably a long time, but we are weeks away from the switchover from Intel's old partner programs to the new Intel Partner Alliance.
This might be more of an existential question because a lot of what's in the new program is already available because it's been being rolled out for 3 years. So is it really new?
Well, the portal is new.
The portal is new. Okay.
Yeah, and there are new rules and requirements and benefits. They didn't actually talk about a lot of that in enormous detail at the conference this week, but you're going to be able to earn more points and earn points in different ways, and there are some new discounts. So there is lots of new stuff. But it's true. I mean, two of the biggest pieces of the program are the marketplace and the university, and they're a year old.
Yeah. Okay. So the portal goes live, and then I think the other part here is the old program is just gone. It officially goes away, right?
Correct. Yep.
So none of that is available anymore, and you are now forced to roll into the new.
You are, yes, exactly. The old programs will cease to exist in January, and if you are an Intel partner, you're part of the Intel Partner Alliance. And that was one of the other things that Intel was telling its partners this week is, go online now, folks, and grab the badge, the logos that we put out there and put those on your website, because the old partner program logos you've got are no good anymore a few months from now.
So there's
Are
probably,
they,
go ahead.
are they working with any one or any distributors specifically that we may all already know and love and have relationships with to push this information out, or is this strictly intel to their customer?
Well, so interestingly enough, one of the roles in the partner program is distributor, because that's a set of partner relationships that they have. So they are definitely working, and I'm sure it's all of the big and not so big distributors are working with Intel. I don't know though if they're utilizing those relationships to push information about the program out. It would be a smart thing to do, just given what they were telling me before about the fact that there are probably a lot of partners only just starting to pay attention now. And it's not a long time before this stuff actually changes. So it would probably be a good idea to take advantage of any resource out there.
Right.
Yeah.
So Richard, a lot of the components of this are far enough along now that let's say I am an Intel partner and I've just been ignoring what's been going on here with the programs. And I'm just now today learning that holy cramoly, thanks to ChannelPro Weekly, I now know that the Intel partner program is going away that I know it as. Is the feedback on the new program better? Do our partners liking it more? Do we know anything about that?
I mean, and it's per Intel, but they say the feedback on the university and the marketplace has been really good. I don't know how much feedback one way or the other they've been getting about the fact that the old program's going away and now there's going to be a new one. But I mean, you do have to imagine that for those partners out there who were navigating 3 or 4 different programs before, I mean, change is never easy, and there will be friction, and people will, will lose some productivity and probably get some headaches over that. But you got to believe having one channel of communication with the company ultimately is going to be a better thing than 3 or 4.
I thought more was better.
It's an interesting point. Speaking of philosophical issues, yeah.
Right.
Lawrence, is more better or is less better?
I think when it comes to channel communication, less is better.
Less is better. That's why we always are in chasing that elusive single pane of glass, right?
Right.
To make things simpler, the one. And when you add the thing to make it the single pane of glass, all you've done is add another pane of glass. So, yeah, good stuff. Well, Lawrence, you kind of read through this. You've listened a little bit of the program. Any comments? What do you think?
I think that with this particularly, Intel is, they make so much and they're responsible for so many things in this space. I mean, wow. I mean, I would not want the task of trying to bring everything back together into one. But if there's any takeaway here, apart from it being a very unenviable task, they seem to have at least considered the ramifications and tried to surely communicate it in advance. They've had enough time. I know. I remember hearing about this. It was probably 2 years ago. I feel like that there were changes coming, and stay tuned. And that was a long commercial break to stay tuned through. So I'm like I said, unenviable task, but I'm glad that they've done it.
It does seem like a monumental undertaking. I can imagine why it took as long as it did. So
Exactly.
Kudos to them for getting it done. And
yeah,
and we'll have to see how partners react over the coming 6 months as they kind of roll into the new program. But hopefully it's better for everybody.
Absolutely, little easier to use too.
We can only hope. Speaking of making things easier to use and easier to do is tools that try to automate things that take a while. And SkyKick just released something like that, didn't they, Rich?
They did. Now, just last week, if I'm not mistaken, we had Gavin Garbutt from Augment on the podcast, and Augment is a very new cloud management vendor. And there are others out there that I'm learning about. This is like the hot thing right now, is tools that can help partners who sell and resell software as a service, infrastructure as a service environments, help them manage those different tools, because and this this will not be news to most of the people in the audience right now. It's kind of a nightmare right now. There are, and this is another area where more is not better. Basically, there is no shortage of management tools. Microsoft has one, Salesforce has one, AWS. Everybody's got its own management tool. The tools all work differently. They're not, a lot of them, as I understand it, terribly good at bulk anything. So if you want to do something to 50 or 75 users or something like that, you've either got to do it by hand over and over and over again, or write up some kind of script to automate that process. But most MSPs don't have a room full of people who know how to script. So there might be one guy, the PowerShell guy, and the help desk is hammering this guy with automation requests, and he's up to his eyeballs trying to figure it all out. So this is the task that SkyKick has really set itself to address. And I should say, so first of all, I'm here broadcasting from home in Seattle. SkyKick headquarters is like a half a mile from me, like due north of here. And I still remember they invited me over to the office like 4 years ago and had me over there for lunch. And they laid out to me exactly what the vision for this company was from the very beginning. That the two co-founders and co-CEOs of the company, Todd Schwartz and Evan Richman, are former Microsoft guys. They both worked in sort of cloud related roles, parts of the business. And they figured out in 2013, when they founded SkyKick, and Office 365 was a fraction of what it is now, they could kind of see that there are going to be these three enormous needs in the world that somebody is going to make a lot of money addressing. And the first is migration. You got to get the data up into the cloud. And then the second is backup. Once the data is in the cloud, you've got to protect it. And then the third is management. Once the cloud gets to a point where it's not just Office 365 and people are using a bunch of different applications, you're going to need a centralized management solution for that. And that was sort of like the destination for the roadmap all along. They got there this week, basically, with this Cloud Manager product. And what it does, it provides a dashboard, sort of a console, where you can pull together all the different software as a service, infrastructure as a service tools that your customers are using. And out of the box right now, and this list is going to be growing all the time, but they support Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, which up until last week was G Suite, Zoom, Slack, Dropbox, DocuSign. There's a whole bunch of others. So you pull all of that together in a centralized management interface. The tool comes with about 400 pre-coded automations for things like, changing passwords for a bunch of users, onboarding a bunch of users, or even one user. They will give you 400 sort of automated processes that anyone, like a help desk tech, can do. Point and click, much easier than utilizing one of these many different tools that you're stuck with right now. There is also a low-code scripting environment where anyone with even pretty basic PowerShell skills can go in and create their own automations, and then you essentially publish that once it's done. And the SkyKick guys refer to it as an app. It becomes an app, and that too joins the 400 other pre-existing automations available to your help desk techs. So they don't have to go back to the PowerShell expert every time that they need some process performed. They just have access to this whole kind of library of automated processes that they can just run, and they don't even need to know too much about how it works. There's some security functionality. I mean, there's a lot actually to this product, and this was a monumental undertaking as well. It took them years to do this, and in part, and this is one of the really kind of cool features about it, is you can create your own automations in PowerShell, but you can run those automations against cloud environments that don't support PowerShell. So one of the headaches with cloud management right now is, if you're in the Microsoft world and PowerShell, you're in good shape. But for some of these other tools out there, you might need to know JavaScript or Python or whatever the, a scripting language du jour is. But with the Cloud Manager product from SkyKick, actually, you write your script in PowerShell, and it, in essence, translates it into these other languages. So you don't actually have to learn all these different scripting environments. You can script pretty much any cloud that they support with that one relatively familiar scripting language. So it's a pretty robust product for what is essentially a 1.0, and like I said, it's a huge milestone for SkyKick.
Yeah. I think they like it's a genius app, right? I mean, that's you know, one ring to rule them all.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're really, I heard, you know, I saw the quote from Todd Schwartz there. You know, one application to command the cloud, and I think that was so well stated. But you know, I think that the point you just made, Rich, is worth to kind of restate that you have one environment. And that one environment, it can address, you know, Office 365, can address Google Workspace, can address Zoom, and you know, really they're in such a unique place to be able to kind of break out of that myopic view of, well, everyone's just using one cloud, when we know that everyone has a dozen, and we need to you know, do something for every user in every one of them. I mean, really just did a great job. I mean, it reminds me a lot of the security orchestration and automated response SOAR model in the security space, where you know, there's a set of conditions, and you know, the collective wisdom of the tribe, if you will, comes together and knows that if these conditions are met, then we should do this thing. Whatever the thing is, and this is very much the same. It's great. Oh, and Slack integration, right? I mean, we all need something else integrated to Slack.
Yeah.
That's so true. That's so true. And you know what? Yeah, I want to take a second and let's give a small round of applause for that poor PowerShell guy.
Yeah.
You know, because you are so right. Like, they just get bombarded, and there's just not enough love for the PowerShell guys.
Amen. And you know, what's funny is, like, this, what I really like about this is that PowerShell guy now can truly be like the ruling elder, right? That you know, he can take that wisdom that he has crafted and disseminate it and make it actually usable, where others that do not know the great mysterious code of PowerShell, that they can use this, and his wisdom can be spread through the land. It's a brilliant move by SkyKick.
It is, and I can see with that concept of being able to write new scripts and publish them, this is going to scale really quickly, I think, and there's going to be a lot of options and pre-configured things that are just easy to do and easy to pick through.
You know, and the tool ships, I mentioned there are these 400 completely coded automations, but inside the scripting tool that comes with it, there's something just shy of 6,800 pre-written actions, they call them. So, I mean, from when you're pulling together some new automation with PowerShell, there's this huge library of pre-assembled stuff that you can kind of snap together and so on. I got to say, maybe I'm late to figure this out, but I think the next 12 months are going to be fascinating in this realm of centralized cloud management. And I mean, and it really was, the interview we did on the show last week, and an interview I did with the founders of Augment a few weeks back, that sort of began opening my eyes to how tough this issue of cloud management is right now, and how bad we needed a new generation of tools is. But it feels like almost every day I'm becoming aware of some other system out there that is trying to fix the problem. I mean, there's news this week that I couldn't even really dive into because there's so much going on, from a company called Better Cloud, which does this kind of thing. Palo Alto introduced a product this week. You might even know a little bit about it, Lawrence, called Prisma Cloud, which is supposed to be like a centralized cloud security management kind of system. I became aware of another, I won't even go down that road. I'm hoping to get an interview on the show a few weeks from now with somebody very interesting who had kind of dropped out of view in the industry for a bunch of years, and now, sort of like Gavin Garbett, has some new cloud management tool that recently came out of stealth mode. So I mean, there's a ton of activity happening now, and it really is kind of a greenfield market. And so I think this next year it's just going to be fascinating to watch these companies go at it and to see who maybe kind of digs in and gets some traction. The SkyKick guys really have a kind of an early start. You know, the augment tool we talked about is a few weeks away from arriving, but SkyKick beat them a little bit, and we'll just see what comes along.
I think there's so much innovation. I think you're so right, Rich. There's so much innovation that is happening here, and you know, as a classically trained engineer, I can say that you know, necessity often is the best, you know, the best impetus for innovation and invention. And you know, now, you know, all of a sudden with between the pandemic and just the maturity, right, the rapid maturity and adoption of the cloud into more and more of the SMB space, you know, that the amount of innovation that's needed to better manage it, put those management tools into the hands of more people, you know, a la MSPs. I mean, what an incredible opportunity this is for these companies, but also for us. I mean, it's an exciting time to be alive, because you know, we get to see I've heard compared many times to kind of the next industrial revolution as things move out to the cloud. But I mean, several years ago, you know, I had read a book and later got involved with the author, just because it was such a fascinating idea. But one API that understands that it's an API and what its capabilities are, and once, you know, that's, you know, then it becomes kind of aware of what it can do and what it needs, and they can reach out to other APIs. And you know, it's like, I know there was a movie that was about this.
Right, isn't that literally like the plot of Skynet
like,
and Terminator?
Like literally the plot of Terminator, right? So absolutely. But you know, now we're starting to see this, where we have artificial intelligence, machine learning, and understanding what the boundaries of cloud are. I mean, it's just, what a fascinating time. And we can say we're all on this ride.
Yeah, wow. You know, Rich, I think we should also think about doing like an on-locale interview with the SkyKick crew, since they're only like, you know, well, you said a half mile. I wonder, because it really is the one tool to rule them all. I wonder if they're all like really short, like little hobbits, you know, or maybe they're all just kind of sit in their office and, like, you know, pet their computer and say, "My precious," you know. I don't know. That'll be interesting to see. We'll have to work that out. Next story is a SolarWinds story, which later on in the show here we're gonna see an interview with Tim Brown, the VP of Security at SolarWinds. But this is a SolarWinds MSP story. They discuss IPOs, integrations, and customer success investments. That's a lot of words to say. What, Rich?
Well, and let's kind of roll this story together with the next one on the list there, because there's a lot of IPO talk here involving big names in managed services software. So SolarWinds, just a few weeks ago, when it was issuing its quarterly numbers, announced to the world that they were thinking pretty seriously about taking SolarWinds MSP, which is a division, a unit within the company, and spinning that out as a separate business through an IPO that would turn it into a publicly traded corporation. And then, of course, just yesterday, Datto officially became a publicly traded corporation. Datto's IPO, which we had known was coming for a few months now, did in fact arrive yesterday, and we'll circle back to that. They raised $594 million yesterday through their IPO. With SolarWinds, so the SolarWinds corporate business has been publicly traded for a while. So there is a board of directors. There are shareholders who would have to sign off on this plan to turn SolarWinds MSP into a separate business through an IPO. But I had an opportunity to speak with John Pagliuca, who was our guest on the show a little bit earlier this year, and talk with him about it. And the thing that kind of struck me most was that there was nothing sort of cagey about the way that he came at this topic. He really believes that this spinoff would be a smart thing for the company, and a great thing for SolarWinds MSP and its partner. I mean, he wants this to happen. No decision has been made. It's ultimately up to the people who own the company. the shareholders, but he really wants it to happen. And his boss, Kevin Thompson, the CEO of SolarWinds, really wants it to happen. They both really believe that this is something that would be smart for everybody involved. And, you know, again, not 100% up to them, but this kind of tells me something that, you know, has been discussed as a possibility feels more like a probability. We won't know for sure what's going to happen, and nothing will happen this year. John mentioned in this interview, you know, you're looking early next year before a final decision gets made, but it sure feels to me like there is an IPO coming for SolarWinds MSP. And John kind of discussed why that is a good thing for SolarWinds MSP and its partners. And from his perspective, what that means is that he and his management team and the whole company can focus 100% on their products and their partners. When you're part of this larger corporate structure, and part of what you do is you know, build integrations with and coordinate and collaborate with the IT professional oriented part of the company, or when, like, just to cite the example John cited, you know, now and again there might be some $3 million acquisition that he wants to make that would be really strategic for SolarWinds MSP, and not expensive for SolarWinds, but almost too small to get the you know, corporate HQ kind of attention that it might deserve. None of that is an issue once SolarWinds MSP is its own business. They can really just focus in 100% on what they do, and that have more flexibility, and after an IPO, more money to put into that. And you know, in terms of where that money would go, they just kind of said you would see more of what they are already investing in, but it would just kind of happen faster. So they're investing in these, you know, customer success, which partner success, essentially, resources. They are doing a lot of R&D. They're investing in really tight integrations with companies like Cisco and Microsoft. You'll see more of that. You'll see it kind of come faster, because they have their own sort of pool of money, and they have no other distractions basically to keep them from doing all that stuff.
There are some dangers of spinoffs too, right? I mean, so if they spin that off, what are the downsides of that?
Well, and this, you know, so I asked that question in the interview, and this was sort of further evidence to me that, yeah, this could very well happen, because John had to think about it for a moment. He was like, huh. Yeah, from his perspective, there aren't a lot of, but he did say the potential downside is, you know, an IPO, a big transaction like this can have distracting effects. And so the thing that, and he, you know, he's been through this in his career multiple times. The people he works with have, and so he feels very confident that he can prevent this from happening. But the potential downside is you split the company off, and everybody is so focused on the repercussions of that giant organizational change that they take their eye off the ball, and, you know, product innovation kind of lags, and so on and so forth. So he's aware of that issue. He doesn't feel like it's a big danger.
You know, so they've had some really big name acquisitions over the last couple of years. Did he give you any kind of sense that of what their continued focus was in their either acquisition or that further integration of those products?
No, I mean, so acquisitions would certainly be a part of the strategy, and again, that they would have more freedom to kind of decide and move faster on those. They wouldn't have to compete for the limited M&A bandwidth at SolarWinds for that. But I mean, in terms of specifically what kinds of companies they might be looking at, I don't know. I mean, it's worth noting, one of the things that they are emphasizing right now is, and this is true of a lot of vendors, is automation and utilizing artificial intelligence to sort of automate processes that take up a fair amount of a technician's time, but, you know, maybe shouldn't. So you do wonder if that might be an area where there are niche players who could be an interesting purchase for them. But I don't know specifically where they would want to go spend their money.
Yeah, they've had some, I mean, like starting with like Enable, and then like what was it, like Logic Now, and I know most recently NetPath. I mean, it's a really great story that they kind of put together. So that's gonna be interesting to kind of follow.
So I ask this of anytime we talk about IPOs and stocks, how many shares you gonna buy?
And you know what? Now it can be told because I had the opportunity to buy Datto shares yesterday. I did not actually do that, so I guess the answer there turned out to be zero. Not because not making any comment on that company or the investment value, but I just did not seize the chance to buy. And I guess we should remember this number, right? When Datto stock went on sale, the public's first chance to buy into Datto, shares went for $27 a piece. Let's remember that number. See where they're at. A few years down the road. Did I miss out on the opportunity of a lifetime yesterday?
Maybe we'll all be going like, I should have bought Amazon, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And I should have bought Datto.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe,
I think we all have a few of those under our belts.
Right?
I totally should have.
Well, it's really a great story arc though that Datto has. I mean, they were born in this industry. And here they are, a publicly traded company. I mean, going to the point of this industry really maturing and just growing up. We have lots of PE that's involved here. We have big names in PE, not just small players, but when you have like Thoma Bravo and Silver Lake that are involved, and now we have Datto that's a publicly traded company with, I mean, arguably one of the greatest tickers ever at MSP,
right?
To say, and kind of, that's a first player or first mover advantage right there.
yeah, they grabbed the MSP ticker.
Exactly.
So, Rich, you mentioned the Datto went public. That's kind of the next news story on our list. We've talked a little bit about that. So they're obviously public now. You got a chance to talk to Rob Ray and ask him a couple questions. Anything from that interview you want to highlight, or should we just send people there to go read it?
I will just highlight the thing that he came back to a lot, and I mean it's interesting. So when I spoke with SolarWinds MSP about the possibility of an IPO, they were kind of emphasizing that they could do more of what they were already doing, but they were kind of pointing out that there would be some new things that we could do in essence, faster, sooner, whatever. The overwhelming message that I got from Rob yesterday when we spoke about this is MSPs, don't worry about this. Nothing's going to change. Essentially, nothing's going to change. And he was very upfront about why he was emphasizing that. He said anytime a company that people like and do a lot of business with has a big momentous event like this, people get worried that the things they like are going to end and it's not going to be the same thing working with the company anymore. And so they really are making a point of emphasizing at Datto right now. It's gonna be the same experience. We're gonna have the same focus. So really, you're not gonna feel any effects from this in terms of you're working with us or our product. Continuity. What was the theme of that conversation? And I mean, obviously, time will tell, and I'm sure people, hearing that from Rob Ray, hopefully, is a little reassuring. I'm sure people will still be a little nervous anyway. But that's what they want folks to know is it's a big deal for us at Datto. It's probably not a big deal anytime soon for you. It's status quo for you as a partner.
Good. Excellent. All right. Well, we will, like I said in the beginning of the show, we will post links to all these stories, including this interview with Rob Ray, which you should go and check out. ChannelProNetwork.com is the website, and go and find the show sheet for episode 164 if you're watching on YouTube. Open up the description area, and all those links are there for you right now. We are going to take a short break. When we come back, we've got a great interview lined up with Tim Brown, VP of Security at SolarWinds. It's going to be a great conversation. We're going to talk about securing SMBs during the coronavirus pandemic and much, much more. Stick around for that. We will be right back. And welcome back to part 2 of ChannelPro Weekly. We have an amazing guest interview lined up today. We're very, very excited to have him on. He is currently the VP of Security for SolarWinds, with responsibility spanning internal IT security, product security, and security strategy. He has over 20 years experience developing and implementing security technology, including identity and access management, and a long list thereabout. Please welcome Tim Brown. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you on. For those who are kind of unfamiliar with you, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you are today? Because it's a very it's a storied background. Lots of stops along the way.
Yeah, lots of stops along the way. I've had really a privilege to do a lot of different things. You know, I started off as a developer, developed a lot of security solutions, invented a few, really moved the needle forward on the development side, advised government, advised the White House a few times, did a lot of things with a lot of CISOs around the world, trying to help them get better. One of the things I hadn't done is actually been a CISO myself. So 4 years ago, I took the opportunity to really become a CISO for SolarWinds and understand the operational side of the business as well as kind of the strategy, the direction. And I was able to put a lot of the things that I've been thinking about for 20 years into practice. So it gave me the opportunity to see if I was right. And some cases I was, some things were harder than I thought. But yeah, been around for a long time. Security is great because it just keeps changing, always a good challenge.
Very cool. And so tell us a little bit about your role at SolarWinds and kind of what you do there.
Yeah, so it's a number of different things. So first off, my primary mission is to keep the company safe, to understand the risk for the company, and to make sure my MSPs are safe too, because they're a big part of our company, right? If I can't keep them safe, I can't keep the company safe and I start losing money everywhere, right? So that's a big part of it. And how do you do that, right? So you do that with developing secure products. You do that with being responsive to customers on security issues. You do that by moving the needle all the time to make things more and more secure. So I run an ops team, I run a compliance team, and then I also help with strategy of where we're going to go, what are we going to buy, how are we going to invest in security next. So it's still a varied type of operation. We have about 44 offices globally, so 4,000-ish people. So it keeps us busy, 60 products, 250,000 customers. So a lot of customers. So it's, yeah, it keeps us busy just trying to keep everybody secure and moving forward.
So, Tim, one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about with you is a topic that I know has been on your mind some this year. And there are a lot of people who are talking, you hear the expression, the new normal a lot these days, but you've been kind of spinning it in terms of the new different.
Yeah.
So what is the new different? What is different about the new different that we all find ourselves in these days from a security standpoint?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get back to normal, right? People think, oh, we're going to get back to where we were 6 months ago, 9 months ago, a year ago. And I think it's just going to come back to, hey, it's going to be different, right? We're going to have a more diverse workforce. We're going to have a workforce that is not comfortable going into offices. We're going to have economies that are based on remote work. We're going to have a lot of different things kind of happening. So I like to look at, this is really digital transformation 2.0. When we look at it, what does that mean? That means, have you gone to a doctor? No, you've used telemedicine. More and more and more and more telemedicine right now. How do you get food? Do you go out to a restaurant? Maybe in some places, but ordering food and being able to order through good apps has been taking off for those restaurants who have been able to do that. Retail changes incredibly. Manufacturing changing in the way in which they do things to be able to do things securely and a little bit more remotely. So more IoT and manufacturing. So that next level of kind of different will be embracing technology even more, right? That's one of the things people say, it's going to be so weird. It's going to be so dependent on technology, so dependent on IT, so dependent on information and knowledge. And so we're going to enter a phase which is going to be different, but IT is going to take even more center stage.
And so from the standpoint of an MSP, what kind of different, maybe harder security challenges is an MSP going to face in the new different?
Yeah, so when you think about a lot of it means extra information coming into the environment. So how do you protect that information? How do you store that information? How do you appropriately deal with information from other countries and other places, and how you're dealing with that? The MSP's clients are going to need to ask them that. They're also going to need to be able to manage in that world of additional information themselves. So they're going to be able to do that. There's also opportunities to make sure that they're doing appropriate consulting for their clients, and appropriate guidance for them to get into that new different. It's also becoming very more risky than it was 6 months ago right now. We definitely should consider ourselves on a heightened level of security for the second half of 2020. When we look at so many things going on, civil unrest, unemployment, elections, all of these things spawn activity. And when activity is spawned, when challenges occur, that means you get more people kind of entering into kind of the bad guy realm versus the good guy realm. Oh, well, if I got laid off, I need to make money somewhere. Let me go collect a botnet, right? If I got laid off, let me go attack something. If I got laid off, let me go see if I can get into a system that I used to be part of, right? So if you have employees that you've had to downsize, those employees may still have access to your back ends. How do you make sure that that is covered? So it is going to be, from a security perspective, both a challenge for MSPs to make sure they keep themselves protected, as well as for their clients to understand that they should be on a heightened level of awareness right now. Just internally, we see spikes of phishing like we've never seen before. The amount of activity from the outside coming in and attacking our environment is much, much, much higher than what we've seen in past years.
When you talk to MSPs over the course of the last 6 months or so in conversations with MSPs, I mean, what specific security related headaches, concerns, and so on are you hearing about most often from them?
Yeah, I mean, the shift to work from home happened really quick, and really quick for lots of people, and lots of clients. So that shift affected them and their employees. It also affected all of their clients, or many of their clients. Now the hard part comes is bringing them back. So that's one of the biggest challenges that folks are facing. How do I bring them back? How do I bring them back securely? What do I do different? If I had companies that didn't embrace kind of zero trust and more cloud-based applications, how did I get them access to their normal in the office type apps, right? That's been a challenge, right? Here's my VPN big enough. And can I keep up on my VPN? Is my network infrastructure enough? And then how do I look at those environments and how do I improve them? I think that's the other challenge that the MSPs are looking at. They're saying, all right, I'm going to have to live with this maybe indefinitely. So is it really right that I have 98% of the employees VPNing home? Right? I'll tell you, in my case, I have about 20% of folks VPNing back home, right? Because I've been able to implement a model that didn't require that. But a lot of companies that the MSP are dealing with need to do that. So do I beef up the infrastructure, or do I start moving them off to cloud apps, right? Do I start moving them more remote? Do I start accepting that we have a different type of perimeter and different models to protect that? Right. So the MSPs need to kind of think zero trust models, be able to say, okay, I'm going to let everybody work from home. I'm going to put the security in each one of the application, and I'm going to monitor those applications, as opposed to thinking that, yep, I protected the network and I'm done, right? The network is just gone. It's just so weird and different now. It's one component, but its importance has shrunk to minimal compared to what it was, again, a year ago.
One thing that you said that I think it's worthwhile touching on again, and that is, everyone left, right? Everyone went home so quickly, and that was MSPs, that was clients, that was small business. Everyone just went home, and now we're seeing companies that are making that change permanent, right? Where they say you can work wherever you are. And however, and even just this week, Microsoft announced, I thought was a fantastic policy, and that is to embrace individual work patterns and styles and work wherever. So the question I would have is, as you look at that, right, with such a broad perspective across so many customers and so many different industries, the operational challenges of even workflow management, how MSPs make sure that, hey, all the users are secure, that we have security at the endpoint, making sure that there's compliance, and if those small businesses, because I think your point is very well made, if those small businesses didn't have the technology or were reluctant to embrace the technology, or like in a lot of our clients' cases, they're unable to do that because of
Exactly.
lagging federal regulation. What is like, what are you seeing operationally that are best practices or some things that you could recommend?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that, again, one of the ideas that I wanted to put in place that I dealt with 20 years ago or 15 years ago was I had a belief that you shouldn't need to protect 100% of your employees, right? That a certain percentage of them really make up the majority of your risk, okay? So take that concept to what I call the 20 percenters and 80 percenters.
Okay.
20 percenters have administrative rights. 20% of administrative rights on applications. 20 percenters are in your finance department, your legal department. You have people who are just reading mail and doing their job. You have people that have access to lower, not your mission and critical business and system apps. So when you start with that kind of attitude and you say, hey, I've got 20% or 80%, I really do need to protect those 20 percenters to the max, right? And my 80%, well, okay, you're working from a machine I may not trust. Well, what are you going to do? You get into email. Okay, so what's my risk if your email is compromised? Well, I have good controls on O365. I'm monitoring O365. I've got conditional access on O365. So what is my real risk associated with that user on that machine? Pretty low. So do I really need to protect them at the same level as everybody else? I absolutely need to do the basics. I need to have a baseline. I need to do what I can do, but do I need to monitor every keystroke? No, right? But when I look at the 20 percenters, yes, I do. So if you segment your market in that way, especially with everybody being remote, everybody being in different places, you can identify your 20 percenters and start treating them special. And the 80 percenters, you get to a baseline and say, yep, I'm willing to accept risk at that baseline. And that makes it a much more manageable problem. It makes it a problem where you're going to spend appropriate money for your clients. So you expect your clients to spend more on their 20 percenters, less on their 80s. And you have a model that can work. One of the things, though, is 90% of the MSPs are 20 percenters. So they can't forget that they themselves are my 20 percenters.
It's funny because if you're going to go and you're going to talk to employees and they're wondering why that you're putting all this extra security on, you just get to look at them and say, because you're special.
Because you're special. Absolutely. You're special. Therefore, I'm going to be a pain in the butt to you because you're special. If you're not so special, that's okay, right? But if you have, keys to my kingdom, guess what? You're special.
This year has been, I've been in this business for about 20 years now, and this is the first year that I can recall that not 1, 2, 3, but I think 5 major attacks that targeted specifically MSPs.
Yep.
Not their customers, right? It wasn't a fill in the blank Fortune 500. It was the MSP to capture those keys to the kingdom. Absolutely. Across all of their customers. That was 5 of them that I can think of just off the cuff here that were in national news.
Yep.
And so I think that's an incredibly well-made point that 100% of the employees at an MSP are represented in that 20%.
Absolutely. And they need to be able to understand that that's what they have. Now, you might have a sales guy in an MSP that's not so much, right? But, any of your technical folks, any of your techs, any of your people who have access to the back end, all of those are very, very, very special. And, their life should not be easy, right? It should be that, you're MFAing more and more. It should be that if you're switching devices, you get prompted. It should be that we're checking to make sure it's both you and that you're coming from appropriately protected machines all the time, because the risk is just super high and they are the target. So it's really important in an MSP environment to segment your access, right? Give your techs access to only what they need. Have very few godlike access privileges. Just control and always reduce the attack aperture whenever you can.
One thing I'd be interested to hear is, so obviously, you're now on an operational side, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's with a lot of exposure, and I imagine you get to see a lot of differing attacks that are coming into your organization. Are there any things that you could, like any specific attack vectors that you find to be either especially clever or ones that have been effective against your technical folks that are in those operational roles?
So one of the things that surprises people all the time is they're always looking for that, big whiz bang new vector of attack.
Yeah.
And if you look at all of the super sophisticated threat attack groups, if you look at what they do, you know what their number one attack vector is? Phishing. It is. It's phishing. It's boring. It's old. It's been there forever. But what do they start with? They always start with phishing. Always. Social engineering phishing is the place that you start with. Then your next step is hygiene, right? Again, boring. Do I have to really patch everything all the time? Yes, you do.
Yes.
Right? Do I really have to change my default passwords? Yes, you do. Right? If I buy, whiz bang new product feature here, won't that take care of everything? No, it won't. Right? So the basics are still so important. And if you can hit the basics and hit them well, and you are not a suspect of a targeted, sophisticated nation state attack, you will be generally safe. If you don't take care of those basics, you will be attacked constantly and something will get through. It just will, right? So it is critical that you do take care of all of those first, and then look at the different attack surfaces, then look at who's been attacking you, then look at behavioral analysis. But again, when you look at not doing full behavioral analysis for 100% of a population, but for 20%, it becomes much more achievable, right? Because I can deal with 100 people, right? Can I deal with 10,000, right? No. So when you look at that, you can really lock down a subset of a population much better. So it is important to understand, who are your crown people, right? What are your crown jewels? What are those people that fit there? What are the most important assets in my environment? We run a list of basically mission and business critical apps, which everybody should do. They should know what those are. And then we know how they're protected. We know whether we get enough information to protect them as an independent entity, or if we have to add additional protection around the outside, such as bring them in home and make somebody go through VPN to get to them. But if you don't have the list to start with, then it's very hard to provide an appropriate plan for protection. And that's what we have to do, right? It's all about risk reduction. It's all about appropriate plans. Nothing is ever secure. Nothing is ever 100% secure. It's really about just managing the risk and still providing the operations to the business.
Well, and as you said too, you could be secure from a technology perspective, but one of the weak links in any security plan is always people, right?
Yep.
Because people are fallible themselves.
Yep, no question. People making mistakes, right? So change control is a huge one to watch, right? Especially from an MSP perspective. You should be watching your changes. You should be making sure the changes are approved. You should be making sure that humans don't make mistakes, or if they are, you have at least a record and can use it as a training event. Again, boring stuff, right? But change control is super important, and a place where so many mistakes happen and so much risk gets opened up from those mistakes.
Securing a managed service provider, it's kind of a shared responsibility sort of scenario. So, I mean, change management, some of the other principles and best practices you're talking about are critical on the MSP side of that. What are you folks doing? What have you been doing at SolarWinds in the last year or so, now that there is so much threat activity directed at MSPs, to harden your tools and just make them safer?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot, right? So for many years, we've been doing pen testing of our products. We've been external pen testing. We've been making those results available. But in the last year, one of the things that we really did was standardize on our methodology between basically no matter where a vulnerability or a security issue is reported, whether it comes from internal, comes from a external pen test, comes from a internal pen test, comes from anywhere. So what we've done is really institute a process that starts with JIRA and tagging, right? So we tag everything that came in that has a security smell to it as with a security tag. We then rate it with a CVSS score. That rating gets into our ticketing system or our JIRA. Then my team is watching anything that is essentially a 5 and above from a CVSS score to make sure activity occurs, make sure that there's plans associated, make sure that we have them built. And we have a internal SLAs set up for us to fix things. Now, in certain instances, you can't fix things overnight. They can't fit your normal 90, 120 day SLA. So what do? So we provided a RAF process, right? So a risk acceptance form process. So a risk acceptance form needs to be first submitted by my peer, one of the vice presidents in the company, and then it needs to be accepted by me. But the RAF may go something like, well, these 5 issues were found internally. No one has found them externally. If we group them together, we'll be able to fix them in 4 months. If we do them separately, it's going to take us 6 months. So we're not going to meet the SLA, but we're going to group them together and we're going to pull them all out together in one hot fix that will be out, blah. And we'll say, okay, right? So having that RAF process in the middle of your rating, your scoring, your checkup, your RAF allows us to make sure things don't get lost, right? Not saying we're perfect by any means, not saying that, we'll ever be perfect, but a process like that has really, really helped kind of improve our overall process. But you should always look for securely built products. So from a vendor, you should always ask them for their pen tests. You should always ask them for their certs. In today's day and age, you should be going through a SOC 2 or an ISO. You should be going through those processes because they give you a set of maturity. They give you, they're not be all and end all unto themselves, but it gives you a sense of, yes, I've thought about this. I've documented it. I know what I'm doing here. And I've had an external audit look at it. So external audits do matter and they are important. It shows that you have consistent processes. Things like incident response plans, need to make them formal, right? You contact security at SolarWinds.com, it gets to my team 7/24, right? And we're able to take care of things. Dedicated kind of separation of duty, very important, right? That you have DevOps, SecOps, and you have security, and then you have compliance. So having appropriate separation of duty, super, super important. And, just continuous improvement, always continuous improvement, because no product's, 100% free of issues. Everything changes, things change underneath. But it's really just important that they are clearly taking security seriously and that you always have a route to a security team.
I want to jump in here because there is so much you said in that is so incredibly valuable. And I think that, man, we could talk for probably an hour just on this. So, so first, I want to say, as a practitioner, one of the things that you said, which is so important, is making those pen tests available. As the results of your internal or external penetration tests, that the result of the secure software development lifecycle that you have internally, making that available is so critical. And for the other MSPs that are out there, this is something I firmly believe that we should all be asking, and I would even say that we should all be demanding of our vendors.
So we have to be a little careful, right? So where we need to be careful is that I'm a huge fan of responsible disclosure. I helped develop it 15 years ago, literally. And in responsible disclosure, what that means is that people responsibly disclose to you that you have an issue. You then fix that issue in a dedicated period of time, communicating with them through the process. And then you jointly release once you have fixes available, and in the ideal case, once a good set of your customers have updated to those fixes, right? That's the ideal case,
Yep,
because
absolutely.
then your community does not get harmed. Right. And that's the big part that we have to do. So when we look at pen tests and we look at results, it is often after the fact, we can give more information about how they did. We can give information always that we did them, the methodology that was used to do them, categories of issues that might have been found, but to go into specifics does harm to the community. Right. And we have to make sure that we're doing good to the community.
Well,
right?
and I guess I should clarify my point there is there are others in this industry that that won't release that even under NDA at any point in time. And one of the advocations that I've made for some time is, as you mentioned, that acceptable risk and kind of risk acceptance internally as a developer, being able as an operator of those tools to understand, similarly, there's a risk for an update, whether that be operational and downtime or impact in personnel. How bad is it? Like, what's actually contained in the software, and has the software that's been released been vetted against possibly something else? We find like before we release any software into prod, we go through an internal pen testing process. And it's astounding how many pieces of low-hanging fruit. You mentioned CVSS, and I would ask if you'll explain what that is for those that aren't familiar with it. But we find a number of lower CVSS scoring objects that can be easily chained together.
Right.
And it's like we have to know that. So, but before we get to the CVSS, one of the other things I wanted to make sure we dive into, because you are living these statements. Back in January, you had a pretty serious vulnerability that was discovered, and I think that's a great story to tell, because your response to that was very transparent, and where you couldn't meet the SLA of like, we need to turn this. I thought you did a great job. So could you share a little bit about that? So for those that aren't familiar with the dumpster diver?
Yeah. So, in that case, we had worked with somebody to fix an issue essentially. And where I talked about responsible disclosure, I wish they had not made a mistake and disclosed publicly on Reddit that this was in place, simply because it hurt the community, right? But when it happened, right? And sometimes things like that happen. We quickly got everybody together, had a fix out. I think within about a week, we got the press in that instance really helped us, because often people are reluctant to update to patches. And in this instance, it was on premise, right? So we have both a hosted version and an on-premise version. We were able to fix the hosted version very quickly, but we need people to take actions to be able to update their software, update the software that's on premise for them. So again, we tried to be as open as we could with the community about what happened. We tried to publicize as much as we could about what you should do. We tried to just go through it, make people not get overly concerned, but concerned enough that they did update, right? Because we need people to update. And if one thing everybody needs to remember is you've got to update the software. We gave the reporter good call out. We're happy with reporters. Reporters are critical to what we have. Responsible disclosure is just an important part of our overall model. So if people find things, fantastic, tell us, let us see them, get us involved quickly and early. Let us not be surprised by, posting, right? And, just think about, if you do find something, please, no matter what product, no matter what environment, contact the vendor. If the vendor's not being responsive, then, give them, go ahead and start making noise on the outside. But if they're being responsive, try to work with them and wait till things are in the wild fixed, right? Because at any time we put the community at risk, that's bad. So and I think that a lot of, some old folks like me and that grew up in the enterprise, we followed this practice for a long time. A lot of new people don't quite get it. They say, oh, I can get my name out by posting this. I can get my name out by doing this. I can, get my name out and make a name for myself by, showing the world. But if you're an MSP, you just put yourself at risk. So absolutely times to disclose when people are not taking things seriously, and you need to try to make a point. But if you can work with the vendors, work with the vendors.
Just a moment.
If we're not working with them, if we're not working with them, or if a vendor's not working with you, absolutely escalate it through their chain, because somebody should want to work with you. So just keep that in mind.
What was learned from kind of the before, during, and after inside the organization? What changed?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think changed is that we were more personalized in our responses to people, right? Although we were working on things, we would send out a message on a regular cadence, which we do when we have an issue. We'd say, yep, we're working on it, we're working on it, we're working on it. We didn't say, hey, Rich, thanks for the report. We're still working on it tightly. We expect to release out on this date. Please stay tuned. So we were not personalized. So if you look at when things come in now, we're much, much, much more personalized in our approach to the researchers that find things. And that personalized approach kind of says, okay, and we also didn't talk about responsible disclosure before that. We didn't talk about what the expectation was, because we sort of assumed that, hey, you're a security researcher, you understand what the expectations of responsible disclosure are.
Right.
But in reality, this was an MSP that really didn't know anything, right? They didn't know what to expect. They didn't know that, okay, this is kind of the normal path. So we made some assumptions that were not necessarily the correct assumption. So now what you'll see, if somebody we're much more communicative on a personal level. We call out responsible disclosure. We say, if you'd like to publish a CVE on this, we're happy to help you with that process. So we are much more proactive with folks, because again, we're not trying to avoid credit to people. We're not trying to avoid fixing things. We're not trying to avoid taking responsibility for things. What we're trying to avoid is potential harm to the community, right? So with that, we just need the community's help to not, make noise before things are ready to have noise made about them.
Right, because as soon as you make noise, that's when securing that 20% becomes far more important. Great questions, very interesting stuff. I know that when you're securing those employees in that 20%, and you're going to be securing their backside, one of the great ways to do that is with pants. With pants.
Wearing pants. That's a good thing.
That's a good way to secure people's backsides.
But
I've always found.
Well, you never can tell with everybody working at home now.
You never know. You never know these days.
Those are some of my favorite posts on Twitter, where you see the whole scene of someone having an interview on national television, and like the living room is destroyed, and they're wearing a suit up top and not much more.
Their business on top, party on bottom, right?
There you go.
Great stuff. Tim, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. We could probably go on for another hour at least, and hopefully we'll get you back at some point to do just that. For those who want to get in touch with you or learn more about SolarWinds, how can they do that?
Yep, timothy.brown@solarwinds.com, or alwayssecurity@solarwinds.com will reach my team. So please feel free to use it. And, if you do see anything about security, anything for SolarWinds products, just please reach out. That's all. We're all trying to just make things better and, reduce the risk for the community.
Excellent stuff. And with that, we are going to take a break. So thank you again, Tim, so much for being here. When we come back, we're going to wrap up the show. We got some of our regular end of the show features coming up, including Rich pulling out his crystal ball and trying to predict the future and tell us what might happen next week, which he gets right. What do you say, Rich? About 15% of the time ish?
17, 18 in a good week.
And a good one. Well, hopefully this week will be a good week. So stick around for that. We will be right back. And welcome back to part 3 of ChannelPro Weekly. What a great interview with Tim Brown, VP of Security at SolarWinds. Thank you so much again to him for being on with us. Rich, any comments on the interview? I mean, like we got to get him back because like we could have talked for another hour if we really wanted to. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's always a pleasure talking to Tim. So it was great to see him again. But you're totally right. I mean, there are so many things we could have gone into, you know, and it was like we were talking about cloud management earlier on the show, and Tim just barely kind of touched on security management, which I mean is a very similar kind of issue in a layered security environment and lots of different tools and so on. And how do you pull that together? I would have loved to have kind of gotten his thinking on that. Yeah, just a lot of we have to bring him back because there are 15 more things we can talk about with him. For sure. Well, cool stuff. So we're gonna move on to what we lovingly call the museum pick. For those who know, I have a vast variety of old gear and IT products and CE products, but I love it even more when our guests have something old and cool to show off. And Lawrence, fortunately, has a couple interesting things he's going to show off. The first one I cannot wait to hear about. Lawrence, take it away.
Sure enough. So now 20-something years ago, I had picked up this old 1950s, 1960s oscilloscope from a scientist that had obtained it from Lawrence Livermore National Labs. It still has the NIST calibration stamps on it, working vacuum tubes. And I think the best part of it was after I had paid, I think it was like a whopping $12 that I paid for this. I'm pretty sure because he was just tired of lugging this thing around. I mean, it's massive. But in parting, he says, "Oh, don't worry, it's not radioactive anymore."
Well, that's
and that was just right, exactly. So it has been sitting around my office. Like I brought it in. It actually still works, which is pretty amazing, just in and of itself. But I brought it into my office because it will make the perfect end table. And here we are in the middle of COVID, and the one thing I'm not doing is coming into the office. So here it sits.
And that's amazing that it still works. I mean, like they really built stuff to last back then.
Right? It's amazing. It's amazing.
So do you know how to use the oscilloscope?
I absolutely do know how to use the oscilloscope.
That's right, because you are an engineer, right?
Yes.
Oh, that is so cool. What a neat dual function. You can use it as an end table and test things
right
at the same time.
But seeing as it has like a maximum frequency of I think 50 megahertz.
Not the most useful today.
Yeah, not the most useful today.
That is fantastic. And I think you had one more you wanted to show us too.
Yeah, sure. I kind of like you, Matt. I collect just old things, and we actually have an entire table where we lovingly say that good computers go to die, and it's a shadow box, and it's just completely full of old stuff. But one of those things that is now very much in use still to this day is my good old-fashioned Nortel Networks coffee mug.
You can't beat the value of a good mug.
You can't beat the value of a good mug. And this one has been around, oh my gosh, forever, right? I mean, we sold Nortel data products. And I think we were one of like the maybe 2 partners that didn't sell Nortel voice gear. Yeah. But they had all these really great data products, and we sold all their data products. And I remember our sales rep came by one day, and he had a couple of these mugs. Like, yeah, you want one? And I hear it still sits on my desk.
I mean, that investment into that tchotchke paid off 100-fold.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's a bankrupt company after 100 years or whatever it was.
So they should have given away more mugs. That's
apparently, or maybe made it easier to sell their products.
Well, that might have helped a little bit too. You know, there was a couple things Nortel I think probably could have done a little differently.
I agree.
But investing in coffee mugs was something that they did right. Well, cool stuff. Thank you so much for bringing those on to share with us. Very, very cool. I don't have a lot of gear like that, like an oscilloscope. So that's why we love it when the guests come on and they have some cool stuff to share, because they'll see some other wacky things that I would never have.
So, I think maybe you should frequent the local ham fest scene, because I
might have to. I got a buddy that's big into the ham fests, and they go, and I've been to like a couple, but not for years and years. Probably because I fear that I would come home with lots of stuff like that, and I already have a hard time siloing it into the basement. Or in the areas where my wife allows me to have my old stuff. So that might be dangerous if I go to those. But very, very cool stuff. So that's going to lead me into my tech pick. I don't usually like to do kind of a that was then, this is now, but I don't actually have any like modern communication company coffee mugs to show off. So what I will do though is go ahead and share with you the tech pick that I picked out. So this is the Yoga 9i from Lenovo, new laptop that they just came out with recently. I really like the Yoga line from Lenovo. They really put a lot of thought into the engineering, into the design, and this new 9i is it's a brilliant looking notebook. So 15.6-inch display, 4K resolution, integrated NVIDIA graphics. 10th gen core Intel, and of course it has that that yoga hinge with that they're known for, so it can kind of fold and be a 2-in-1. So lots of good specs there to look at, and and it's pretty nice looking. I thought they had more pictures, but I guess not. But yeah, nice looking notebook. $2,000 is kind of what they start at, but I like a lot that it's got there. So Rich, how many you want?
Well, are you paying?
Lawrence is paying.
Oh, I'm good. I got mine right here. We're good.
So what box is that for?
It's funny. I just yesterday upgraded a ThinkPad to a ThinkPad. So,
as many ThinkPad owners do.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of the Lenovo products. This is their new T15G, and really nice machine for the 24 hours that I've owned it. But my last, I don't know, dozen of them, they've lasted for a while. But yeah, you're right that like I have a Yoga at home, and they. That hinge is actually probably some of the coolest tech that is in a laptop, right?
It is. I love that Lenovo's they like to experiment with form factors and do a lot of crazy stuff. And we've talked about many different ones on the show here. And I also personally own a Yoga 900 that I like pretty well. But if I was going to get a new one today, that 9i looks really nice. If I was going to go back to the Yoga, of course, I do love the ThinkPads. I've had many of them. Rich knows in my museum, I've got a lot of old IBM ThinkPads that I've brought out and talked about. So very good stuff. You'll have to, next time you come back, you'll have to kind of give us your little short review on the T15G and let us know what you think of it.
I am the one who I can actually say that I have melted down a machine from overuse. So I'll be happy to. It's amazing. I mean, it's amazing what we get in a box today.
It really is. It really is. That's so true. Rich, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for the tech pick and the museum pick. Thanks again, Lawrence, for bringing those on to show us. Yeah. Rich, why don't you first consult with Mr. Gaskin and tell us what we might have missed, and then put your hands up here to your temples and think really hard and try to tell us what might come next week.
Well, what Mr. Gaskin is going to share with us, as he does every Friday in his "In Case You Missed It" post on ChannelProNetwork.com, is a look at news from the week that was. Speaking of hardware, Acer just yesterday unveiled a whole ton of new products. James is going to summarize those for you a little bit. They've got a new chief revenue officer over at Axient. If you partner with Webroot, you probably know this guy, so that might be of interest to you. And then James has some thoughts about a story out of Canada concerning a city that has somewhat belatedly addressed a branding issue. It may not have been a great idea for the last few decades to be living in a city called Asbestos, but James will be talking about that a little bit. And then just looking ahead to next week, this week was a massive conference week, just more conferences than I could certainly possibly be a hold of. But next week, there's really one that I'm most interested in, which is OpenText's show. And I've really never attended an OpenText show before, but they now own Carbonite and Webroot. And so I will be checking with those folks next year, and product news, I'm sure, coming along as well.
Very, very cool. Well, that is going to wrap up episode 164. Big thanks to Tim Brown from SolarWinds for coming on and talking to us today. And a huge thanks to Lawrence Cruciana, still got it right, I hope, for coming on and being our guest host today. It was wonderful having you on. I love it when our guests get involved and have lots to share and contribute. And you did that in spades, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's great to talk to this audience.
Good, and hopefully, they always say that, oh yeah, I had fun that day, but if you come back, we know you really had a good time. But hopefully, you had a good time with us here today.
I did very much. Thank you.
Good, love to have you back. All right, well, how do you subscribe to Channel Pro Weekly? How do you make sure that if Lawrence comes back, you won't miss it? And that is by subscribing to Channel Pro Weekly. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, everywhere where podcasts are aggregated. So make sure you subscribe there. Then you can listen on the go, whether you're going between work sites or sitting around the office, whatever. If you like to watch, you can subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit that red button and the bell. Do both. That way, you can kind of go back and forth depending on where you're at any given time. ChannelProNetwork.com is the website. Turn your web browser to it each and every time you open it up for the latest news, articles, white papers, resources, downloads, anything and everything that you need, you the person with many, many acronyms, to make your business better, to be more profitable, or to keep up on the latest and what's going on in the industry. If you'd like to follow us on the social networks, we are Channel Pro Network on Facebook and LinkedIn. We are at Channel Pro SMB on Twitter. Rich, what are you on the Twitters?
At Rich Free.
And I'm at Matt Whitlock on Twitter. Lawrence, you got a Twitter?
Absolutely.
What are you on the Twitters?
At L Cruciana.
At L Cruciana. So make sure you follow him as well. And Lawrence, where can people go to learn more about you and more about CIT?
Absolutely. corp-infotech.com or on Twitter, just at corpinfotech.
Perfect. And of course, we want your emails as well. So if you want to email us, podcast@channelpronetwork.com is the email. If you have any thoughts, suggestions, comments, we would love to hear them. And that is going to wrap up episode 164. Thanks again so much, Lawrence, for coming on. And we will see you all in episode 165 next week.